What's your one word for Slayrobe?
Empowering, extremely thoughtful,
Feminist.
Fashion with comfort.
Game changer.
Styling bestie?
Well, it's the need of the hour to have someone as a BFF who doesn't give it back to you so easily, but will be there 24/7.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Indian Impact Podcast. Now, for the Women's Day, we could have discussed various topics, women empowerment, body positivity, but what we have decided to do is something fun. I want to introduce Pooja Lalwani. Pooja is a successful Indian who has been working in Amsterdam. She has worked with top brands for past 10 years, and she's with us to talk about Slayrobe. So your body is not the problem is your wardrobe. That's the topic. Welcome, Pooja.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. It's an honor to be here and it's an absolute privilege. And thank you also for the warm introduction. So, like Gaurav mentioned, I've been in the Netherlands for over 7 years now. And prior to launching Slayrobe last year, I've been working with Google, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, and fintech scale-ups. And I wanted to culminate my journey from fashion, tech, and scale-ups to actually launching one, which is where Slayrobe comes in. Slayrobe is designed to be a confidence and style revolution for women. And what we basically help you do is to understand your body, your preferences, so that you can choose better, wear longer, and also buy less. Effectively, what we're trying to do is to fight fashion waste with style. And I'm excited to be a part of this podcast and look forward to what's ahead, Gaurav.
Really, if I tell you personally, I have less knowledge about fashion. I've been working in fashion industry for 7, 8 years. But so it would be an educational podcast for me as well. So tell me this, Pooja, what is the most common thing that you think women tell themselves, maybe a lie about themselves when they're in front of mirror?
Yeah, I think before I answer that, I also want to touch upon something that you mentioned, your body isn't the problem, it's your wardrobe. So I want to start off by saying that most women are not really struggling with their bodies. They're struggling with what looks, feels, and is accepted as attractive socially. And most of us are actually doing guesswork and experimentation. Dash. And the dash can be my arms, my waistline, my face, my jawline. It can be anything. So that's the most common lie, that you need to fix something about you. And I do believe that, fitness is important and everything is a journey, but you can't bash yourself up for the phase you're in. So it's just that when your proportions change, you can still look amazing, but that's when you have to be intentional about how you style yourself. But if you wear the right outfit, it changes how you stand today. So that's the most common lie, that I need to fix something about myself, that women tell.
So talking about that, what is the science behind looking good?
It's a big question, actually, because it's very important for women to understand their proportions, what their preferences, what part of their bodies they like to flaunt, what they like to downplay. And then comes the whole part about color analysis. So what's your undertone like? What's your contrast level like? And based on that, what your seasonal color palette looks like. So what the other part is, what makes you you? What's your vibe? What do you want to communicate with your agenda? Do you want to be more timeless? Do you want to be more effortless and casual? Or do you want to appear more bold and authoritative? So when you know your agenda and you combine that with your proportions, preferences, and colors, that really helps you reduce decision fatigue when you're trying to style yourself. And when you know yourself, your choices become more predictable. So that's really what the science and art behind a perfect wardrobe is.
And Slayrobe does all of it. It helps you to match your color palette, the existing things that you have, how you can style differently. So maybe
Yeah.
for someone who's scrolling through Instagram at 1 a.m., if you would like to define Slayrobe in maybe 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah, I think for a midnight scroller, and I've been there, most of the times we are looking for outfits for the next day, what's going to work and what's not going to work. So I just want to say one thing, like most clothes won't fix it, but Slayrobe will. So you can go take some rest now. That's what I would say.
Nice. Pooja, I've heard this a lot of times that I have nothing to wear. Is it really the problem of the wardrobe, or is it the confusion between a lot of options?
It's a great question. And, it's the easiest question to also make people understand why Slayrobe or a platform like that is relevant. Because if you look at an average woman's wardrobe, you'll find maybe between 80 to 150 pieces minimum if you kind of combine everything. So It's very, and if you only have 6 pieces and intentional pieces, you can create 15 combinations. So you sorted at least for 2 weeks. So it's not the volume of clothes that's the problem. The problem, according to me, is that people don't really recognize themselves and or their agenda and what they really want to communicate with the wardrobe. And the other part is they don't know the rules for dressing. So we are stuck with guesswork. We're stuck with buying, returning, regret cycle. And we're not really trying to understand why is it that we're making these emotional choices? Why are we not auditing what we already have? And there is this whole industry, right, of image consultants and people who help you with your wardrobes that's thriving
Yeah.
primarily because there is information asymmetry. So it's not that people don't have clothes to wear, it's really about not knowing how to put things together.
Pooja, as a person, is it something that came across for you personally in your journey, or is it you worked in fashion for so long, you learned a lot of things from there, and then you decided to implement that?
I think it's a journey, Gaurav. So when you start off, it's very easy to be impressionable. It's very easy to look at what other people are wearing, what's looking fashionable, and then try to buy all of those things and then figure out, oh, but this doesn't work for me. And it takes a while for you to understand that you're just burning a hole in your pocket and yet feeling very unsure. So there's some other problem. It's not really about the clothes you're buying. And for me, that was amplified postpartum. So my body proportions were very different. My confidence levels were very different. What I was really doing is to just buy a lot in the hope that something will make me feel better. So I was fixing an emotional problem with the clothes that I was buying. And that's really when I got introduced to the whole science behind curating a wardrobe. And I realized that it's a very expensive journey to bring yourself back, right? You know, there's a stylist, there is a person who does color analysis, there's a person who does your wardrobe, there's a person who tells you what makeup looks good on you. So if you combine all of that, on an average, you're looking at spending between 3 to 5,000 euros minimum to claim that agency back, you know, from a styling perspective.
Really?
Yeah, and that got me thinking, you know, because if it's taught in curriculums and if people are being certified, of course there is logic and of course there is science. So, of course, there can be an algorithm built around it. So that's when I started speaking with experts, you know, in Europe, in India, also in the US, and started curating their knowledge in a way that's more digestible. And that's kind of what led to Slayrobe. And my journey was just personal and very expensive. And I didn't want other people to have the same, how do I put this? The same tough discovery
Struggle.
path.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I was not aware that this is such a big thing and there is so much of logic behind it, or women do such a deep introspection. Why is it important? But why is it important to look good?
Great question. I think for men and women, styling works a little bit differently. I've seen that at the moment it's still a little bit more functional for men. For women, it's an expression of their identity, of who they are. So it's also very interesting because somehow, you have Instagram, you have a plethora of all of this exposure to what other people are wearing, and that kind of creates this comparison of, okay, why am I not looking like that, or why don't I make the same kind of choices? And then in that noise, it's very hard to discern what is it that you really stand for. So you end up making choices that work again for everybody else, or maybe the red carpet looks, but that don't work for you. And I think women derive a lot of sense of validation from, for example, peer feedback, or their best friends and what they're saying, or how many people are hyping them up when they go to a party. So that validation loop is important for women, and therefore it's important for them to understand, okay, how do I look right?
Okay. Maybe, it would take a bit of more time for me to understand.
Yeah.
But yeah.
To get inside a woman's head, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of things going on, but yeah, I think there is a very interesting movie about women wants. I watched it the day before. But yeah,
Yeah, it's very hard for a movie to summarize that, honestly.
they tried. But yeah,
Yeah.
coming back to you, Pooja, how was your life growing up in India? If when you retrospect in terms of fashion, is there a kind of an unsaid rule about how good girls should dress in India? And then from there to what you have learned so far, how is the journey?
See, growing up and in India, I think conservative is the norm, right? Especially in the times that I grew up in. I was born in the early 90s and, moved from a small city to a bigger city, carried that conservative outlook. My parents are doctors. So of course, that gets multiplied a little bit. We don't experiment too much outside the norm. I don't think I was very fashionable. My choices were very safe. And I don't think I understood anything about fashion. At the same time, I used to dress other people up. So I was really good at curating things for other people, not on myself. And I was a nerd most of my life, and I would still consider myself to be that. So I was
At this
always,
point, can we show your some old pictures maybe?
I don't have them, but I will send them to you for
Okay.
sure. And maybe you can add them in the segment. But yeah, so I was just very safe with my choices, like because I was just studying all the time. So wardrobe was a very secondary concern to me. And I didn't derive my personality from fashion. My personality was from my grades. So it was never really important to me. And at that time, it served me well. And then, of course, you enter the real world where effort and competence stops being enough. Your presence, your personality, and how you show up also become really important. And my past years have also been in HR, so I understand, what presence really accounts for. And a large part of that is how you look. So that's really where, my whole introduction to fashion came into being. And you look, if you enter PVH, even now, everybody looks like a Hollywood star.
Yeah.
Uh, so if that's the kind of playing field you're stepping into, of course you have to step up your game. And that almost kind of forced me into thinking more intentionally about how I want to show up in front of people.
So
So that's
interestingly, I was saying that I've also worked at PVH and
yeah.
just wait for their summer parties or winter parties. Everyone it's a red carpet moment for everyone. Everyone is on the A game.
Yeah, it's such a vibe, and you if you want to fit in, you have to be a certain way. You can choose not to fit in, but you still have to have that sort of elevated sense of style, and that takes a while to figure out, especially if you've been in India for a very long time, where fashion has been more functional, and the red carpet looks have been on the red carpet, not in real life. So that, and I think you asked the second part of the question about what a good girl should dress like. And I
Yeah.
think there are so many rules, right? Because you have to be impressive, but don't be intimidating. You have to be attractive, but don't be provocative. So, or don't be loud. And what that kind of creates is like this constant self editing move. So even if you've dressed right, you're always second guessing. There's this trial room panic and there's meltdown before leaving the house. You're changing dress last minute. So there's a lot of self editing that goes on top of a very uneven society for women in India.
Indeed. Do you think that has changed now with Gen Z? Do you think who dress better, millennials or Gen Z?
It's an interesting question because I think millennials were born in a time where we were still dressing up to be appropriate, right? So we are constantly kind of fighting this battle between expression and being appropriate, whereas Gen Zs have been born into a time of a lot of exposure. So they are more open to experimenting, they're more open to trying out new styles, they're more open to just, for example, wearing an asymmetrical neckline because who cares? I think their ideology and the kind of psychographic that they've been born into is very different. So millennials are still trying to be correct and impress. And I think Gen Zs are more experimentational and interesting, I think, in their styling choices.
I think I got stuck at asymmetrical neckline. I do not understand. But yeah,
It's like if your neck is like this is symmetry, right? Like if I
yeah.
push it down a little bit, then it becomes
Oh,
asymmetrical.
okay. So with that, I have some pictures for you, which compares Gen Z and millennials. Can you talk us through the difference between both of them? Yeah.
Sounds good. Happy to.
So that's the first picture. And I think you were talking about this asymmetrical neckline.
Yeah, that's correct. So I think for this picture, it's an interesting picture, right? Because it looks like Gen Z's dressing like she expects to be photographed. So there is intention in the neckline, there is emphasis on the waist, and it kind of almost says that I chose this. And if you look at the millennial, she's still got her proportions right, in terms of splitting her body into 1/3 and 2/3. But she is dressing like she expects to be taken seriously. And it almost communicates, like I said, I'm appropriate. So one of them is more impactful, and I think the other one is optimizing for approval between Gen Z and millennials.
Okay, I have to ask this. What is the splitting your body into one third and two third?
Yeah, so if you look at your whole body, a lot of people make this mistake of cutting the body in half. So they will wear, let's say, like a top that kind of almost touches the torso, like a mid part of the torso or the belly button, and then the other part is a pant or a skirt. And what that does is that it doesn't create any interest. It just splits your body into two parts, so it looks very flat. Whereas if you kind of wear a high waistband or a skirt that is a little bit more on the part that's right below your bust, then it creates visual interest because now your body is split into one third and two third. So when you do that, you look more proportionate. And both of them are doing it really well in this picture. It's just that the emphasis is very different.
Interesting. Okay, nice. So let's move to the next one.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So there is a clear contrast, something that I mentioned before, right? So here, like Gen Z has a fitted top, she has a white leg, a lot more drama around the hemline. So she seems like she's aware of proportions. Whereas on the millennial side, you see like a cardigan, straight denim. It feels safe. It almost like is pre-approved. Like you can't go wrong with this. So it's comfortable, but it's visually a lot more quieter. So like I said, this is more experimentation on the left, and on the right side is a little bit more stability in terms of and safer choices.
So I have heard straight fit, I have heard a slim fit. What is a dad fit jeans?
No, I think it's just more loose and comfortable around the waistline
Okay.
is what I can see from this picture. There's also mom fit jeans, which basically kind of helps you with the midsection. So after, for example, you've done your pregnancy and your skin is a little bit loose and it takes a while for it to go away. So mom jeans basically is high waist and it creates a lot more room around the stomach area. So then it's more comfortable.
Okay, that's next one.
Ooh, okay. Gen Zs. It's playful. It's still polished, but it's playful. It's slightly preppy, slightly ironic. The proportions are a bit softer. They're less dramatic, like compared to the right. It feels very effortless on the left hand side. I have to say that. Like she didn't overthink it, but it's very intentional still. On the millennial style, I think this is deliberate shaping. So you see that, the corset really defines her waistline aggressively. The flares, they still elongate the leg for her. So it's more sculpted. It's like I planned this. And the interesting part is that, Gen Z is kind of dressing down the structure and millennial is dressing up the structure, like parts of her body. So one is leaning into more comfort, cool, and the other one is leaning into femininity. And I think here millennial wins because there is a lot more silhouette power, and Gen Z wins if ease was the criteria.
Do you think low-rise jeans looks like dumber? Or have you seen that picture of Justin Bieber with always wearing low-waist jeans?
Yeah, he can pull it off because he's a celebrity, and I think celebrities wear narratives, not clothes.
Okay.
But low rise, they don't look dumb. I think it's a harsh word, but they look selectively good. So it works, on people who are naturally longer, they have longer legs or a shorter upper body. There it feels more effortless. On most people, though, I think what it does is the splitting of half and half. So it visually shortens the legs and it kind of shifts the balance in a very unflattering way. So I don't think they look good for everyone. Not on me for sure.
What do you think about men's fashion in general, but Indian men in particular? Are they fashionable or they're starting to become a bit more style conscious now? What do you think?
Mm. So it's interesting because Indian men is such an interesting category also, right? It's a very clean split for me, how I've seen them. So there are formals, people who wear formals, and there are people who wear casuals. So very few of them actually fluidly move between the two. So I have not seen a lot of experimentation, not a lot of hybrid dressing. Or I have not also seen a lot of designers designing for this vibe. So for many men, I still feel fashion is very functional. It's about being appropriate and, going to the office or going to a party, but not so much about expression. But there are still like a section of people who understand fabric quality, textures, color pairing, and small details like, watches, bells. So if people really put in mind to that, they immediately stand out because there are not a lot of Indian men who are doing it. Yeah, so they just have to be more curious. I think they're increasingly getting more curious, but a lot of them are just coasting on safe details.
If you had to pick some of the celebs from Indian subcontinent, who would those be like who are, really good in styling?
I think Hrithik Roshan is like master stroke in styling. I don't know who styles him, but I think he's so intentional about everything, every vibe. He understands his body really perfectly. He knows what to flex, what not to flex, and I think he's also very easy on details. So it looks very effortless on him just because he carries it very very well. I really think of him as a benchmark for styling.
Okay. I also like Kapoor personally. I feel
Oh
that,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he's definitely more experimental, like not Ranveer Singh experimental, but I think he's still in a safe territory, but he does experiment quite a bit.
And I think these days, because of the World Cup and all, I'm also still looking out at Hardik Pandya as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he has a totally different kind of set of vibe.
he does. I think it complements his personality really well. So he's if you look at him from 5 years ago to now, he's a completely different person when it comes to expression through fashion.
So coming back to women, you have styled so many thousands of women. What do you think about the women, how they actually feel about their body and clothes, and they would really express it?
I think I think a lot of women are really tired. So they're tired of guesswork, they're tired of being sold to, they're tired of greenwashing, they're tired of brand speak. And I do feel that a lot of women feel this gap that no brand is speaking to me, no brand is speaking to my body, no brand is speaking to my vibe. I think people are just really tired of just impulse buying and consciously just or subconsciously just kind of having that emotional spree every now and then, and thinking of what to figure out every day, or thinking about what people will say if I wear this or that. So there is a lot of tiredness, and there's a lot of like, I'm done with this judgment space. I think that's probably what they're feeling with their wardrobes right now.
Can you tell what is greenwashing? Like if someone is hearing this for the first time?
Well, I think you would also know this given your experience in fashion. So correct me, if I'm wrong here. But I feel that with the emphasis on sustainability and sustainable supply chains, a lot of people are not doing their justice in terms of qualifying every part of the supply chain. They could probably just be looking at, finding a vendor who has such and so standards, but not really cleaning up their supply chain by themselves. And what really happens is that, people are selling this idea of, oh, I source this from this and this community, or I source this from this and this, but you don't really know what's happening in their supply chains for real. And that's what happens when your external label around, sustainability doesn't really match your practices.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are getting more and more conscious about who they're buying from and what their supply chains look like. So there are a lot of brands who are taking advantage, but there are a lot of brands who are actually doing diligence with upcycling, patchwork, circular mixes, and so on. So
And Slayrobe does take care of that part as well.
yeah, when we do onboard brands, we do a very thorough check on their supply chains, their certificates they have, and then we onboard them. So that's why we're also very selective about it.
So there was a documentary I was watching on Netflix about how fast fashion has degraded the whole planet. And when brands talk about recycling, they just dump their stuff onto South Asian countries where
Yeah.
if it's good, it's resold or passed on to African countries for selling. And the way things are being recycled is not actually doing any favor to the environment. It's actually creating a lot more pollution, but in the countries which are economically not well. So I think that is what you are also referring to, right? When it comes to supply chain, it has to be end to end.
Yeah, absolutely. Right from, kind of materials you're using to recycle, who is employed there, how fairly are they paid, what are your practices, what are your QACs checks involved, and at which level do they continue to keep existing? I think all of those things are also really important. So I think fast fashion has indeed degraded, but I also feel like it's a very psychologically acute and psychologically exploitative space, because if women don't know what they want, they will continue to buy and brands will continue to keep producing. So what I've seen often is that people are trying to address sustainable production. My stance on this is why produce at all? Just educate the customer first, help them choose better. And then if they need to buy beyond what they already have, then you push, brands which have a certain sense of morality in their supply chains.
But if they don't produce oil, they push their bottom line and top line.
I agree. But I think there is always a trade off, right? Like, what are you in the business of? Are you in the business of confusing the consumer or actually serving them?
And we both are nerds. You also said that. So we can get into this topic really deep. But Pooja, that kind of contradicts to what is happening right now. If you look at celebrities or Instagram or influencers, a lot of influencers build their career around this theme, right? Be who you are. And then, but now with these drugs that have been introduced to lose weight, they have quickly shifted their narrative as well.
Hmm. So, Gaurav, I have to be conscious when I say about body positivity because I feel like sometimes people think body positivity is one circle and fitness is one circle. I want to say they are not. Like, even if you are, body positive, even if you're on the plus side, I do still think that, you can't dismiss fitness or your health. So these are not separate conversations. You have to think of them together. But what body positivity did well from a narrative point of view is that it interrupted the cycle of shame around being a certain size. So for a long time, even if you look at celebs or whoever you idolize in the Indian segment, people were idolizing a certain kind of body, a certain kind of look and feel, and they always felt like, okay, I need to fix myself. So what body positivity did was to kind of help women understand that you are allowed to exist as you are. Um, but confidence can't really sustain on messaging alone. Women globally, they don't start from the same place, and if you add variables like your size, your shape, your skin color, culture, conditioning, the judgment becomes layered and unequal. So the standards kind of keep moving, and they're often harsher for women, not really soft. So yes, body positivity opened the door, but I don't think it's enough to create a lasting confidence. It has to come from, again, like I said, understanding your body, knowing what works, having more conversations, and having an ecosystem that also supports it. Because if you're saying, okay, great, great that we have positivity around your size, but we don't have brands that produce for you, where is that conversation going? So the whole ecosystem also has to support this conversation. But like I said, if fitness comes either through drugs or through, for example, actually working out like most healthy people would, um, it just has a lot of benefits for your body. So I understand people who have shifted gears and now they're feeling healthier in their bodies and they want to talk about it now. At the same time, I don't endorse any external drug or any external mechanism to help you lose weight. I took 2 years to lose 20 kgs. And I will never ever suggest any shortcut to people. So, from a narrative point of view, you can sell whatever floats your boat. At the same time, just be conscious about the impact that you have on other people.
And I think I'm in the same kind of, it's hard work that takes to make you fit, and you should, and it's a lifestyle, right? If you really get into that mode, you will start enjoying it rather than it becomes a tedious task to actually look good.
Yeah.
But okay, let's do a bit of fun thing.
Okay.
I'll show you some pictures. You tell me what's wrong here. Okay.
Ooh, this is a controversial section, Gaurav, because I hate saying what's wrong, but okay. So I think here, if you look at this is styling for statement. It's not really for her. It's like spectacle styling, And so the lavender lip here is a headline. The dress overall is romantic. It's soft. It's subtle. And if you look at the lighting over here, her undertones look a little bit more warm, neutral. So instead of like elevating her, the styling or specifically the makeup, it competes with her. So it's a red carpet choice. It's made for cameras. It's made for virality. I don't think it's made for her or for harmony. So what's
Okay.
wrong is nothing. It's just like, the context is such that it's not designed for her.
Okay, that's a very safe answer and really nicely put. We'll move on to the
Okay.
next.
I'll be bolder for the next ones. Again, this is statement fashion. I think what's wrong here is not really her color. I think the color really works for her, but there is a lot of proportion overload. So the trench overall is very dramatic. This oversized collar, the structure is heavy, the train is exaggerated, the boots are strong. The neckline is plunging, and the slit is also high on the right hand side. So there are like too many power signals competing. So instead of like one focal point, you everything here is just shouting for attention. So on the carpet, I think this is Met Gala, I believe. On red carpet, it can work really well because your goal is to make a spectacle, right?
Yeah.
And but here, what I see is wrong is that the coat has more presence than the woman herself. So it's theater. It's not really balance.
Okay. Nice one. And the last one.
So actually, I had a bomber jacket like this, so it was very hard for me to be critical about this. But this is extremely oversized and padded, you know. So and from what I can see of the jeans, they are relaxed. They're wide, probably. The sunglasses are, you know, sharp and narrow. So the upper body actually really looks bulky, and the lower body looks very loose and relaxed. And the face is still trying to remain sleek. So there is no intentional shape. So if you're trying to go oversized on the top, my recommendation would be to anchor with a cleaner bottom. And if you're going relaxed overall, the fabric weight should still create some flow. Here, what you see is like, you know, the jacket is kind of dominating the frame. So it adds a lot of visual weight to the shoulders, but it doesn't really create any defined silhouette. So it's again trend forward street style. She's a celebrity, she can pull it off. She's communicating a vibe. But again, that's when you separate celeb narrative from what's functional for you.
So when you explain like this, it makes me think that you know your stuff, right? Can you walk us through what happens if someone kind of joins Slayrobe? So if you take the pictures, what happens next? What's the user journey like?
Sure, sure. So when you download Slayrobe, you're particularly guided through a list of questions that any good stylist would ask you. So about your height, about your body shape, about what parts of your body you like to flaunt, downplay, what's the vibe you want to communicate. And we've given information around all of this. So you're not really lost or you're not starting from zero. And you also communicate what kind of brands you really shop from. So we give you a very tailored experience based on all of those inputs. Once you enter, you see an ecosystem which is part styling and part confidence. Where styling comes into place, there is this whole section of color analysis, where if you take a selfie, we understand your undertones, your contrast levels, and based on that, we give you a seasonal palette, including colors to avoid. And we don't do that just for your clothes, we also do that for your makeup and jewelry, because if you have warm undertones, different makeup looks good on you. And if you're cool undertone, you can pull off a blue eyeshadow in a beat. And we also give you jewelry recommendations, for example. And once you have the palette, you can use that to shop and also optimize your wardrobe. So you can upload pieces from your wardrobe and you can say create outfit, and based on color theory and principles, we mix and match, give you the wardrobe that you want, and we also kind of help you shop better by applying your colors. So that's the styling part of it, if that answers the question.
Definitely, it does. And do you think you said that earlier that women more listen to their best friends as well and their advice? So do you think AI would be a best friend in the future?
I think AI will become more accurate in helping you, and your best friend will still hype you better. So a smart woman is most likely to use both.
Nicely said. So this is the last one. I have a few pictures comparing different celebrities. You have to tell who wore it better. That's the thing on internet.
Oh, okay. So we're inviting into trends now. Okay. All right. Do I have to give you reasons, or do I just say which one I like or not?
No, you have to give me reasons.
All right. Okay. That makes more sense to me. Okay. So this is Anne Hathaway and Sonam Kapoor, both wearing slightly neonish colors. And I prefer Anne Hathaway. I'll tell you why. Because it's monochromatic, it's editorial, it's built for impact, but it's also high risk. She can pull it off because her undertone kind of complements it. If you see Sonam Kapoor on the right, I think she's following a very strong principle, which is 60-30-10. But your eyes, even though your eyes move, she kind of overdoes it with, you know, the earrings and the watch. And also the color is not flattering for her. So I prefer Anne Hathaway.
Okay. Next.
This is a hard one because I actually don't prefer either of them. So on the left-hand side, if you look at her dress, the dress is dominating. The print is very dense. The yellow is saturated. And you don't know where to look because are you looking at her or the dress? There's a lot of, chaos happening over there. On the right hand side, she's actually applying a styling technique. She's pulling the color from her dress and she's repeating it with her lip and her bag. So technically there is cohesion, but the dress is already loud. So if I were her, I would actually pull the green color in the bag, not red. So I actually don't prefer either of them. Sorry.
So we talked about male slabs, but who do you think you admire in terms of dressing sense in women?
This is a hard one because nowadays everybody has really good stylists. I think a lot of maybe Deepika does a good job just playing to her proportions really well.
Mhm.
Alia is getting she's very different from again 3-4 years ago. I think she's really upped her style game. I also find her very appropriate for the Indian audience. With the Gucci shoots though, a little bit less so, but I think she's still nailing it. So I think these two.
Okay, nice.
I also think Masaba Gupta, extremely underrated, but her styling sense is impeccable.
Yeah. Let's move to the next.
I love Katrina Kaif, but I think she's overdoing it over here because the outfit is already very detailed, so you didn't really need to add that bralette, didn't really need to have the hair pulled down. So yeah, I don't see her when I look at this. Whereas with Angelina, I think you see very clearly her, and the outfit is not really competing with her. It's complementing. So I prefer Angelina.
It may be also the event that you're attending to, right?
That's true. That's true. I think it just feels overdone to me, but she's doing it for, GQ awards and she's walking the red carpet. So of course she has to maintain that vibe. Context wise, probably both of them are correct, but I just happen to prefer the right one because I can see the outfit and I can also see the model.
Yeah. Okay, the next.
Okay. I think I prefer the right one because the left one, there are like too many factors just competing for attention. So there is the jacket, there is the bag, probably a Chanel bag. Both of them are, wearing the same kind of minis. But the red one is a stronger, bold look, but there is not a lot of relief for the eye. So a lot of like factors in her outfit are competing for attention. Whereas with Alia, she kind of creates almost like a seductive vibe with a little bit of a exposure around the neckline. It just feels more palatable to the eye for me. Okay, so this one is again very interesting comparison. On the left side, you have this black belt, and it almost kind of breaks the stripes and interrupts the stripes very sharply. So it feels a little bit more style, slightly experimental, but it shortens her flow and shortens her torso. On the right hand side, it's Deepika. She can pull off everything and anything, but the drape is cleaner, and you can actually see the sari, and the white belt is not really breaking the flow, so it feels more regal and more composed. So the left one can be a little bit more fashion forward, and the right one is more controlled. Technically, both of them work.
Can you tell me one thing why women adore Deepika so much? I've never seen a woman criticizing Deepika.
I think there is more to her than her celebrity presence. Like, she's very real. She doesn't really put up a farce. She doesn't try to make her accent seem different. And she's just very vulnerable. And I think for women, that's very attractive if you're able to do that in public, because a lot of women probably are crying on the inside, but they have to maintain a different facade outside. But Deepika kind of owns both sides. So that's what makes her attractive.
Okay, interesting. Let's take a last one, Pooja.
All right. Okay. So both outfits are similar. I think the structures are slightly similar too. Kriti Sanon is a bit more taller. On the left hand side, she's definitely dressed up more festive. So she's like really put together for a festive occasion. On the right side, it's more cool and easy breezy kind of a vibe. Same outfit, very different vibe. I prefer the one on the right. Even if it was a festive, I would prefer on the one on the right.
So in your app Slayrobe, do you also do neckwear?
At the moment, not yet, because ethnic wear primarily suffers from sizing consistency.
Mhm.
A lot of brands have very inconsistent sizing. And because of the prints and everything, it's very hard to also categorize them appropriately. So right now we're still doing Western. However, if you upload ethnic pieces in your wardrobe, we'll still be able to help you mix and match. So we don't do shopping for ethnic yet.
And what do you think of fashion in India and in Europe? You've been here for last 10 years. And in India, we are so colorful. Whenever I have two daughters and whenever I dressed them on the Indian dresses that we bring from India, people here are like, wow, where do you got this?
Yeah. So see, our temperatures and our climate conditions are very different, right? So when you have warmer conditions, you can have more colored dyes for clothes. When you're colder countries, you typically stick with neutrals. And I think in India, people are competing with two identities. One is the professional identity, one is the social identity. So therefore, the wardrobes look a little bit more interesting, sometimes chaotic. Whereas in Netherlands, I think people have just nailed the functional neutrals. They've
Mhm.
just nailed. So you see that their styling is a little bit more effortless. They don't have to dress for Indian occasions and Western occasions. And I think they're a little bit more comfortable also in their skin, primarily because the society judges less. In India, you're always dressing up for, yes, myself, but also who's going to look at me. So there's that kind of confusion that also plays a part. But your question was, who does it better, or
No,
what is
that
my
was
observation?
general comparison. What is your observation?
Yeah. Yeah, I think colors feel attractive here because there is not a lot of self-production. I think very few brands like Essential Antwerp does it. Not a lot of brands do it like they do. And in India, every other brand is doing colors. So it just feels a little bit more out of the ordinary here if somebody's wearing a pink neon jacket to work. So
And I feel that there is a different fashion in summers here in Europe as compared to winters. Winter is more like, as you said, it's basics, and summer are more vibrant, and people do dress up more vibrantly then.
yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, you have over here in Netherlands, you always have to carry layers. So irrespective of what you're wearing. But in summers, I think that 1 month we get which is uninterrupted, of course, people experiment here also.
With that note, I cannot wait for summers in Netherlands. It's still a bit cold for me. But thanks, Pooja. Thanks for doing this. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. The rare episodes on the Indian Impact podcast, we get deep into the topic, talk about the science behind this. But thanks a lot, Pooja. It was really fun.
Thanks to you too. It was refreshing for me. I don't do this and that and choices because you know me a little bit from this conversation. But I appreciate you thinking of me and for us to do this together. I am looking forward to continuing the conversation, the nerdy conversation separately.
Definitely. And any final word you'd like to say to the audience, especially to the women who are watching this?
Yeah, I would like to tell you that if you're looking into the mirror and if you're still feeling unsure about yourself, there is a way out, and don't get stuck in that zone because there is path forward. And if you don't know where to start with Slayrobe.
That's the word. Start with Slayrobe. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Pooja.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye. Yeah.
Bye.